Alright, so this next story is going to be talking about one of the most disappointing game launches of all time. This actually might have been one of the games that had the most hype and let people down the hardest that I've ever seen in my entirety of time here on the internet. Remember Cyberpunk 2077? Everybody thought that that game was basically going to be the next coming of the franchise. Everyone was going to be playing it for years. And then it came out and it sucked. Well, I saw this article talking about how, well, it's finally getting better now. And I just hate that attitude about game companies and games right now because the game's almost 2 years old, alright? If I pay $70 for something back in 2020 and it takes till 2022 to become enjoyable, I better not see any articles saying that they've done a great job. And I'm not blaming the developers, I'm sure it was more like the high-up executives that made them release it early. But still, I love how this game took 2 years to get good and people are still gonna compliment them, bro. It's like somebody in a really toxic relationship. Sure, Deborah might hit me every time I say something wrong, but she's a great girlfriend, guys. Cyberpunk 2077 passes another notable milestone on Steam. Kudos to the game for getting more players, I guess. It only took you 2 years to be able to figure it out, but this article is just hilarious. Guys, it passed a very important milestone on Steam. It took 2 years for it to start passing milestones. I'm sure its peak player numbers right when it came out were pretty impressive until everyone realized the game just didn't work for quite a long time. I don't know, the gaming industry has just reached the point where games are so expected to be broken on release. They're expected to be so stinky doo-doo the first months they come out that people write articles about what a great job they did in the 2 years since the games come out. If they weren't able to fix the game nearly 2 years after it come out, then what was the point of even buying it in the first place? Game companies are just so confident that we're all dumb enough to keep paying for stuff even if it doesn't work that they're never going to stop doing it. Think about it from their perspective. Oh, we don't really have to try and everyone will still give us $70 for a half-finished game, and then when we take 3 years to get it to a working condition, we're going to get a bunch of praise? That's sweet, and then even more people will buy it years later? Oh my goodness, what a genius business plan. I think most gamers are starting to wake up to it, though. I know most of the people watching this are on my side, because I rant about this relatively often. It really bugs me. But I think even more normal people that I talk to that aren't crazy into games have complained about how it seems like every game that they buy doesn't really work that well when they first get it. So hopefully that changes, because I'm sick and tired of having to play these 60% finished games that I just paid for. Cyberpunk 2077 is now doing better than The Witcher 3 in terms of concurrent player count on Steam, despite CD Projekt's Red 2020 sci-fi title being one of the most disastrous launches in recent gaming history. The studio has been working hard to try and bring fans to the product they were expecting in the first place. Patches aplenty have seen a lot of the most damaging glitches in the game fixed, and while it's not perfect by any standards even now, the game has made its way back onto people's consoles and PCs. So I'm reading this, right, and I'm like, wow, okay, this game's almost 2 years old. That's relatively old in gaming terms, but I feel like having more players than The Witcher shouldn't be that difficult, because I'm not saying The Witcher's a bad game, it's just been out for a really long time. So I did a little bit of Googling, if they're gonna make an article about it, then it's gotta be relatively recent. The fact that Cyberpunk 2077 didn't have more players than a game that came out in 2015 is pretty embarrassing as it is. That's when The Witcher 3 came out. And that's a classic. People would honestly say that's one of the better games ever made, but it's still embarrassing that it took them that long to get back to break even with a game that they released 7 years ago? It was a 5-year gap between that and Cyberpunk 2077, and it's just now catching up. Goodness gracious, how embarrassing. And what really hurts about Cyberpunk 2077 is CD Projekt Red was one of the developers that everybody was like, man, if anyone's gonna be able to do it right and not screw anyone over, it's gonna be them. They had made The Witcher, they had made a bunch of crazy games. The fact that even they ended up releasing a hunk of broken garbage and taking people's money goes to show how widespread the problem is in the gaming industry. If a company that up until that point everybody liked can have it happen, you know that the Activision and Microsofts of the world just really don't care. Think about how long it takes them to fix a game that's broken if it's not a developer that cares that much. Think about Madden. That's the world that we're heading towards, okay? CD Projekt Red at least has the decency to fix it. It should have never been broken in the first place, but at least this company's got follow through to fix whatever is wrong with it in the original problems.